There is a silence in your life right now that sometimes hurts in ways you cannot name. It settles in your chest like a weight, pressing down when you scroll through images of couples intertwined, when you sit alone at dinner tables meant for two, when the evening stretches long and the only voice you hear is your own. You look around and it seems everyone has found their person, everyone but you. And in that looking, in that comparison, your mind begins its ancient whisper, the one conditioned by years of fear, by memories of being left, by the terror of abandonment that lives so deep in your bones it feels like truth. It tells you this aloneness is punishment, that you ruined everything, that perhaps love was never meant for you at all. But what if I told you something that might shift the entire landscape of your suffering? What if this isolation you feel so acutely is not God turning away from you, but God turning you towards something you could not see while surrounded by noise? What if this is not rejection, but the most intentional act of divine love you have ever received? What if God has pulled you into this wilderness not to abandon you there, but to meet you there? Consider for a moment the possibility that what you are experiencing is God removing you from situations that were slowly destroying the woman He created you to be. This is not cruelty. This is rescue. You have spent years, perhaps decades, seeking in another human being the relief for an anguish that smells of childhood, an anguish that predates every adult relationship you have ever entered. You have been trying to fill with romantic connection what was actually a hunger to be seen by yourself, held by yourself, and ultimately known by God. To be enough, all on your own, rooted not in human approval but in divine belovedness. The relationships you pursued were not love in its truest form. They were attempts at regulation. Your nervous system, wired in those early years when safety was inconsistent and care was conditional, learned to interpret the absence of another as mortal danger. The limbic brain, that ancient part of you that speaks only in survival, cannot distinguish between being alone and being abandoned to die, and so it screams. It sends panic through your veins. It floods you with cortisol and desperation. It drives you toward any warm body, any distraction, anything that will quiet the alarm bells ringing in your chest. You became addicted not to love, but to the temporary soothing that came from being chosen, from being wanted, from having someone there to prove you were not forgotten. And when that presence was withdrawn, even briefly, the withdrawal symptoms were unbearable. You mistook intensity for intimacy. You confused chaos for chemistry. You let yourself be treated in ways that wounded you because the wound was familiar, and familiar felt safer than the unknown terrain of actual peace. This is what God is interrupting. This cycle, this pattern, this endless reaching outward for something that can only be built within, in communion with Him. What you are calling forced solitude is actually God's invitation into a season of purification. Your system is being cleared of the need to perform, to please, to shapeshift into whatever version of yourself you believed would finally be loved completely. God has pulled the emergency brake, not because you are unworthy of companionship, but because He saw you settling for relationships that required you to abandon yourself in order to be accepted. And God does not call His daughters to self-erasure. He calls them to wholeness. In the quiet, without an audience, without someone to impress or appease, God is asking you to meet the parts of yourself you have been running from. The mask you wore to earn affection is slipping, and beneath it is the face God formed with His own hands. The one that does not need to earn anything, the one that simply is, held in existence by divine breath. This is uncomfortable because for so long, your identity was constructed around being needed, being useful, being the one who could fix or soothe or save someone else. Without that role, who are you? That question is God's gift. That discomfort is the doorway to transformation. You are being given the rarest of opportunities, the chance to build a foundation inside yourself that no one can demolish because it rests on God Himself, to create an internal home where you are both beloved daughter and temple of the Holy Spirit, where your worth is not determined by whether someone texts you back, whether someone stays, whether someone sees you the way you long to be seen. You are learning, slowly and painfully, that the gaze you needed most was God's, and it has been there all along, steady and unwavering, waiting for you to stop running long enough to receive it. This is what the desert fathers and mothers understood, what mystics across centuries have testified to. The capacity to be alone with God without collapsing into despair is not a luxury. It is spiritual maturity. It is the difference between seeking a partner to complete you and inviting a partner to accompany you in a life already rooted in divine love. One is desperation. The other is freedom. One is idolatry. The other is wholeness. Your nervous system is recalibrating under God's gentle hand. For years, it has been overstimulated, caught in cycles of highs and lows, drama and resolution, breakups and reconciliations. It became accustomed to chaos. It began to associate love with adrenaline, with uncertainty, with the need to constantly prove yourself. And now, in the stillness God has orchestrated, it is learning a different rhythm, a slower one, a steadier one. It is learning that God's presence does not shout, that His love does not wound to prove itself real. That peace is not the absence of passion, but the presence of Him. This recalibration feels like death because in many ways it is. The old version of you, the one who believed she had to earn love through suffering, is dying. The one who thought her pain made her interesting, who confused her wounds with her identity, who gave everything and called it generosity when it was actually self-abandonment. She is being crucified with Christ, and from that death, resurrection is coming. Someone who knows her value, not because someone else confirmed it, but because God spoke it into existence before the foundation of the world. The isolation is also God's way of removing the mirrors you use to avoid seeing yourself clearly. When you are constantly in relationship, you can avoid looking at your own patterns by focusing on theirs. You can blame the other person for the pain, for the disappointment, for the repetition of old stories. But alone with God, the projection screen goes blank. There is no one else to hold responsible. You are confronted with the reality of your own choices, your own patterns, your own unhealed places. This is the refining fire that no one wants to walk through, but that God uses to burn away everything that is not of Him. And here is the turning point, the place where suffering transforms into testimony. This confrontation with yourself, this honest inventory in God's presence, is not meant to confirm your worst fears. It is not evidence that you are broken beyond repair. It is the opposite. It is proof that God is finally ready to heal what you have been protecting from Him. To take responsibility not as a form of self-punishment, but as an act of surrender. You cannot be transformed by what you refuse to confess. And you have been hiding from God for a very long time, filling the space He wanted to occupy with people who could never fill it. God is not withholding love from you. He is withholding distraction. He is removing the noise so you can finally hear His voice. He is clearing the stage so you can stop performing for human approval and start resting in divine acceptance. This is an act of mercy, Though it does not feel merciful, it feels like exile. But exile, in the biblical sense, is often preparation. It is the wilderness where prophets are made. It is the desert where Moses met the burning bush. It is the cave where Elijah heard the still, small voice. It is the prison where Joseph's character was forged before his calling was revealed. You are not being punished. You are being prepared by a God who loves you too much to leave you where you were. Prepared for a kind of love you have never known because you were never still enough to receive it from him first. Prepared to meet someone not from a place of lack, but from a place of overflow. Prepared to recognize healthy love when it arrives because you have finally learned what it feels like to abide in the love of God. And when you do meet that person, if that is what God has planned for you, you will not cling, you will not contort, you will not sacrifice your truth to keep them close, because you will have learned the most essential lesson of all, that you can lose someone and not lose God, that you can be alone and still be held, that the foundation you built on Christ is permanent, unshakable, and eternal. This silence, this ache, this season of solitude is not God forgetting you, it is God forming you into the woman he always intended you to be before the world told you who to become. The one who does not wait to be chosen by man, but rests in being chosen by God, and then invites another to walk beside her in that sacred knowing. So let the silence do its work. Let God strip away what was never yours to carry. Let him reveal what has always been there, waiting beneath the noise. You are not forgotten. You are being remembered by the one who knit you together in your mother's womb, who knows the number of hairs on your head, who collects every tear you cry. You were never meant to beg for love. You were meant to receive it from the source, to embody it, to become so full of it that it overflows naturally into every relationship you enter. And that transformation begins here, in the quiet, in the solitude, in the sacred space where you finally stop running and let God catch you, where you discover that you are loved not because of what you do or who wants you, but because he made you. And what God makes, he calls good. What God calls good, he calls his own. And what belongs to God can never be abandoned.